let me add something to the other side of that. The other week, might have been last week, or might have been Tuesday, I can't remember, but I was talking about the idea of those that are hitting the higher level of maturity, they are not offended. You can't be offended, you don't take things in a certain way, you don't get angry, you don't get upset, you don't get all these things. All right. Now, this is the hard part in Scripture. It's the hard part in any type of communication, like the words coming out of my mouth, is that if you are not focused just on the actual point being made, other peripheral things can be taken out of it. Like you could believe that what I said that Steve brought up somehow would also then excuse my behavior, which it doesn't if my behavior actually is inappropriate, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that your behavior should not be to say, okay, but I found the right place and the right person, so I have to let because Yahweh's working with me too, right? Working, so when there's two in an equation, Yahweh's working with both of you. Okay, so let's go now back to the offended part. One of the things I wrote in my notes that I wanted to make sure to clarify when I was in the thing this morning is there's a difference between recognizing something as offensive or undesirable, something you would rather not have happen around you, to you, or whatever you perceive it to be. There's a difference between that and receiving it. Okay, because you don't have to receive anything just because it happens in your direction, around you, or perceive it as to you doesn't mean that you have to receive it. And then the third part is the state of being, okay? So my point was that if you are Yeshua-like, if you matured, then you will never be, as in your state of being, offended. Okay, that doesn't mean you might not find something offensive. It doesn't mean that you won't recognize something as being offensive or inappropriate or rude or harsh or some other thing, but then it has to do with what you do with that, all right? At the highest level of inward work, of inner work, of growing internally, you would not receive it. You can choose not to receive. And you would not have it be a stimuli to causing you to be angry, be sad, be hurt, be upset, be whatever it is, depressed or offended, because now you're being that as a state of being, okay? You could ask my children, I can express anger for a short period of time, but then I won't be angry. In other words, it won't be like for the next hours and days and weeks, I won't be angry. Okay? Now, I want to get to the point where I don't even do that. So the first thing is to accomplish, let's work our way backwards. First thing is, work it in from the outsides. Recognize that you perceive something as offensive, painful, hurtful, rude, inappropriate, or something. Some negative thing that you are in your perception. It doesn't mean it's true, but your perception is you don't like it. You would rather it didn't happen or wasn't going on. Okay? Then from the other side, recognize that whatever that is, I'm not going to allow it to cause me to be anything in the negative realm. Upset, angry, depressed, sad, hurt, whatever. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you can't be sad for appropriate things. I'm saying this is something that somebody's doing that you recognize is inappropriate, undesirable. It's not like you lost a loved one and you're sad. Okay, we're talking about somebody did something that they could have avoided, and you would have wished they hadn't done it or whatever, and your response was going to be sad, which was not a necessary place to be, okay? So the hard part is in the middle. How do you recognize something and don't become that in the response? You recognize something, and then your response, which would be your normal triggered response or your thought to respond, how do you avoid that being what you become, at least for a period of time? And the answer is you have to decide whether or not to receive it. So you need to create space between the recognition that something is offensive, hurtful, inappropriate, rude, whatever it is you perceive it to be, and what your reaction is. Because this is the weapon that Christianity is used for a lot of people, where I had a husband and wife conversation, many, many times over the years where one of them will say to me, well, the other one will say, well, you shouldn't have been offended. Or that shouldn't upset you, or that shouldn't have made you angry. Now, they're almost saying that whatever I do, it shouldn't bother you. No, you should recognize the thing, because you may then choose to put up boundaries so that it doesn't continue to happen. Do you understand? Okay? So step one is recognizing that thing that just happened or is currently happening. I don't desire to be exposed to that on a regular basis or ever again or whatever it may be.